I have read dozens and dozens and dozens of books on finance, making money, business, and everything else you can imagine within this topic. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is what will make you rich. How do I know? Well, I came from absolutely nothing. And today I have two titles, okay? Investor and somebody who helps other investors and companies find each other. So basically, all my professional life right now is a reflection of making investment decisions. Now, before you start by saying, yeah, well, maybe you have a finance background, accounting, let me just completely throw that out for you. I came from absolutely nothing. When I say nothing, I mean, I don't want to say I came from poverty because I think that's a heavy word. And for most people in the West, when we say poverty, we mean we didn't have the cool kicks, the Nikes and the Adidas when we were kids. Um, but I grew up in a third world country. And what I mean by I came from nothing is there was no surplus of anything financially. And I don't want to say that we were poor, but we were financially bipolar. That's what I'm going for. That's the term I want to coin. We were financially bipolar, as in 1 month, we had all the food you could think of, and you could barely open the fridge. And the next month, we were wondering how to pay the electrical bill. And 1 month, my parents would be flying off to Germany for a friend's wedding. And then the next month, I couldn't invite kids from the private school I used to go to come back home to eat a meal because there was no food. So that's what I mean when I tell you I came from nothing. My parents didn't have a car. They spent everything that they made in mine and my sister's education. And for that, I am forever grateful. And I guess you could say that it has paid off because it has formed the way that I think, and it has opened up, my eyes to different cultures and different opportunities. But I didn't even finish school. I did not finish high school. And here I am. I'm on the board of a public company and I run businesses for a living and I make investment decisions for a living. So I have come from absolutely nothing. I'm an accredited investor. If you don't know what that means, then look it up. Then you can figure out what my current net worth is approximately. And reading all of these books is a great hobby of mine, but I want to distill it down so that you don't get caught up with the dream that somebody's going to try to sell you. Because let me tell you, I've written books before. It's easy. I mean, it's not easy, but it is tempting to write books that sell you a dream where I'm only telling you what you want to hear. And you're buying into an idea that has no basis or is incomplete. Sometimes incomplete information is just as bad as wrong information, sometimes even more dangerous than that. For example, if somebody teaches you to save money and they've lived through the Great Depression because that's all they knew, then guess what? They were right. If they keep teaching you to save money and you're living through wild times like we're living right now, high inflation, that is the wrong thing. Maybe they should say something more complete, like you save money when money is rare and when the value of money is high. And then you'd have to find out what that means. But anyway, let me just prove to you that, these are really, really useful books. Now, this is just a random pile. I have not prepped for this. This is not a setup. These are just the books that are always in the background for me. So This is a decision book. You don't sit down and read it. It's really good because it gives you different frameworks. The Colder War, about the energy wars. This has a lot of years in it. There's probably, I think it's the 10-year-old book already, or maybe 7, I don't know. Energy, super important. Best book written ever, except for the Bible. Getting everything you can out of all you got. If you're in business, read this book. It's mandatory. Oh, I love this one. Hot Commodities. How anyone can invest profitably in the world's best market, etc., etc. I have tapped everything to work from Warren Buffett and a bunch of similar books. Now, with each book, people are going to tell you different information and different frameworks in their own experience. I want to distill some main ideas down to some important principles that may not be super obvious, that are becoming more and more obvious to me, as reading all of these books is one of my hobbies. So one of the things, in order for you to become rich, become wealthy, and reach your financial goals, is to have a healthy dose of self-denial. That's number one. You need to have self-denial in order to become rich. You can't do it without it. What I mean by that is that there is an element of making more money than you spend. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much you make, because you're always going to be digging yourself a financial hole. And in doing that, in having that gap, you're going to have to deny yourself. Literally, take up your cross kind of thing, right? If you make 20 grand a month, you can't spend 25. It will lead you to the poorhouse. Ask Johnny Depp and Michael Jackson. They made multi-millions and they both went bankrupt. And these are just 2 names I can tell you because you know who these people are. So the making of the money is only part of it. It's the keeping of it, not necessarily saving. Get that later, but it's the keeping of it that really means that you're sacrificing a little bit today in order to have more for later as you invest. If you don't have this first step, it doesn't really matter what you do with the rest of your life. You could have the best paying job in the world. You could make many millions, in big deals. You're going to spend it all. And trust me, nowadays you can spend it all. If you reach a ceiling of how much money you spend, go buy a yacht. It's infinite money. Okay. So bear that in mind, that if you don't deny yourself enough to keep yourself going and enough to save or enough to invest for the long term, then there's no point in trying to do the other steps. That's step number one. The second concept that I want to briefly touch upon is catching trends. I could never pull off what Bill Gates, for instance, pulled off. And I could never pull off what Mark Zuckerberg has pulled off. Not only because I don't have the self-denial of working so hard towards a goal that I, kind of forget about the rest of my life. I mean, do realize that a lot of these billionaires, they have a really crappy life in general. It's just their work life their performance is 0.00001%, right? That's what they're really good at. And then sometimes they're crap at everything else. Most times their families are falling apart, et cetera, et cetera. So remember the self-denial. It will permeate everything that you do going forward if you are smart enough to realize it. But the catching of trends, I was not a programmer or coder back in the early 2000s in order to know about and be able to build Facebook. I didn't have access to Tom from MySpace or Steve Jobs, which all happened to Mark Zuckerberg. I was not going to the one school in the whole US that had the first computers, the first personal computers, in the school, in its own building, like Bill Gates did. He had the beginning of a trend. It was being born right where he was. If you are physically in Silicon Valley when things are exploding, you're at an advantage and you're able to catch trends early. Now, I actually learned this by reading people's biographies, but I partly learned this from Tai Lopez. Yeah, the Hero in My Garage guy. He's actually really smart and he reads a lot more books than I do. And catching trends is a real thing. I have seen it happen. I have actually caught trends in business before. And if you invest while thinking of that, then you can really maximize your gains, because that's what a contrarian does, right? A contrarian will look at what's hot, avoid it, look at the stuff that is out of favor, invest in it, because you're making a bet that that's the next trend. And that's the thing that's going to go up next. So trends are super important. But the other thing that can sometimes supersede a trend, not always, it's factor number 3, which is compounding of skills. So for me, to do what I'm doing right here in front of a camera is fairly easy. I don't want to say it's completely easy. You know, there's some thought put behind it, and there's sometimes some research, some level of preparation. Yeah, I did have to buy an expensive camera, lighting, etc. But it is 10 times easier for me to do this now and explain to you an idea that I have than it was for me to do this 15 years ago, because I did not have these skills. And what I'm doing today is using the skills that I have built for many, many years and serving people with skills I've already built, and I can hone in those skills. If I try to go into, let's pick something random, sports management, I'd be lost. The only sports I know is soccer. And I don't know how it works. I don't know the pieces of the puzzle. I don't know who does what, how they make money. Well, I kind of know about that because it's kind of businessy. But, you know, what are the politics involved? And how can you be the best at that? I have no clue. And so if you're going to build a business, if you're going to maybe be the top 1% of your field, you don't necessarily need to go into business for that. You have to compound the skills. You have to use the skills you already have, and then get better and better and better at them, and use those skills with what you're already doing. Don't try to go something down, you know, on the other side of the spectrum. Use what you already have. If you're good at writing, write. If you're good at making videos, make videos. If you're good at researching, do that thing. Like, stick to your lane and amplify your lane, but make sure that you dominate in the skills that you're already building. Now, we've come to the fourth and last concept, which is really how you invest. The basis of investment is very simple. You have some self-denial. You catch trends so that the gap widens of how much you make versus how much you need to spend on yourself on a monthly basis. You compound your skills, which turns into more money coming into your pocket every month. And if you can maintain that simple lifestyle for a little while, you can up it a little bit, but you can't really go overboard. And as you take that, you know, extra bit of money, if you compound that money, then it's game over. Nobody can stop you from being rich. Nobody can stop you from building wealth if you're willing to look over the long term, look at compounding interest, and just keep on investing, whether that's in real estate, stock market, whatever it is. Do not look for quick gains. Do not look for short term. Do not look for trades and something that's hot right now. Look for what is proven and for what is likely to go up a little bit every year for a very, very, very long time. Think about who you can marry, not who you can date. And so if you have that compounding point of view, very easy to say, compounding point of view over 5 years, guess what? It's not enough. You're not going to make it because you're not going to gain enough for the 5 years in order to keep you motivated. But if you have it for 20 years, you're going to see that your returns skyrocket after a certain point. And it is at that point when you can retire and you can live off dividends and royalty payments and other payments and things of that nature. So got to think super long term, got to look at compounding. But in order to compound, you need to have money to compound. In order to do that, you need to compound your skills, catch trends to maximize it and get there faster. But in order to do that, you need some self-denial. So you're not going to hear about these 4 characteristics from most people, but after reading all of these books, that is definitely what stands out for me. That is what I have used in my favor to go from absolutely nothing, high school dropout, to a professional investor. I hope this helps. And I hope that you kill it in this market or in whatever market we face down the road in the next few years in this crazy world economy of ours. That's it. Thank you very much. If you like this video, then hit subscribe because there is much more coming. Take care.